You are live. Yay. I think I say that at the beginning of like every episode. You are live. I just like repeat it. Oh my goodness. It's an automatic. Hello, Danielle. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Sam?
Good. Thank you for joining me. I'm super excited about this conversation. So I'm just giving people, just because we do this live and then add it to a podcast later and then make it available on YouTube, I always try to give people like a couple minutes to hop in. What I'm going to do real quick actually is go onto Facebook and tag you
Oh,
um, in the live feed, if that's okay.
I would love that.
So, in the meantime, tell us. So Danielle is is our guest today, and I'm so excited to hear a little bit about her story. Tell me again where you're located.
So I live in Freehold, New Jersey.
Okay, stop. Why did I not know that? I
I
can't
don't
believe it. Do you
know.
know I lived in Manalapan for like a long time?
Oh, get out of here. We're
How
locals.
did we not wait? Did we seriously not have this conversation before? This is just weird at this point.
I know.
Like,
So easy. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
that's weird. Okay, we'll get into that for sure.
Okay.
I'm so happy you're local. Oh my god, like my heart is fluttering right now.
Oh, I love that. That's cool. Very.
Wow. Um okay, so how long you been there? Forever or
No, almost 7 years. September will be 7 years.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh my god, that's so exciting for me.
No.
And all right, I'm almost have you tagged here. Of course, there's always like a little bit of a process, saving. All right, now, and we're good. Oh my
Okay.
God. I'm so excited right now. How did I not know you were in New Jersey? And I'm like texting you. I'm like messaging you Eastern time, like as if it mattered.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even.
Oh my goodness, so happy. So, just real quick, for those anybody who's watching or listening at a later date, Danielle and we've connected online. Obviously, we hadn't been much connected like face to face before right now. I'm so excited that you're local and in New Jersey. So for those of you my Manalapan people who might be watching, your girl is close by. Um but anyway, yeah, we met through mutual women entrepreneur and wellness people,
Mhm.
and which has been happening so much lately, and like over the past couple of years I've been just so blessed with the opportunity to grow this like tribe of women to like inspire me, and you inspire isn't even the word. So I want to thank you just even for being willing to be here with me today and being like a part of my journey, because I'm watching what you're doing and it's just like so super inspiring and uplifting, and that's what we need to do for each other, right? Bottom line needs to happen. um so I want you to tell us a little bit about yourself. I would love to know, a little bit about what you do. Obviously, let everybody who's listening know, but I would love also just to know about your life and how you came to be in the space that you're in right now as a mindset and manifestation coach. So
Sure.
big, right?
Okay. That's like the whole book
Yeah.
right there. Um,
Yeah. I'm like,
yeah.
you told me the mini part. Now I want to go deep.
So, oh gosh. So how did I come to be here? Um, well, I guess it kind of really I woke up. I'll say I woke up. Like I think that we wake up from our wounds, right? Like we have a trauma or a wound or a pain, and that kind of can wake us up. And I think we have many probably throughout our lifetime. Um, and so when I was 13, I experienced a trauma that essentially kind of woke me up. So I was really young. And I also had a lot of faith. And so I really kind of, this spiritual, I guess, world unfolded to me kind of unbeknownst to me, right? Like I had been connected, like I get messages in my dreams. I had like kind of, these abilities as an empath, but I didn't have words or name any of those things. I just thought we all were doing these things. So that kind of happened, and it led me on this into this world of healing. And so really alternative healing. Um, I ended up getting married and having my two beautiful children. And not long after I was married, I was divorced. So my kids were only 12 months and not quite, she wasn't even 3 yet. So they were 1 and 2 when I got divorced. And so when that happened, I was kind of thrown into unplanned, I guess, single motherhood, right? Like I've never anticipated that for myself. I thought that I was going to have the fairy tale. And so when I became a single mom, I had already had my yoga. I was a yoga teacher for a long time. I was a Reiki master. And so we're talking like over 10 years ago, right? So it's not like it is now where like every a Reiki master on every corner, like a Starbucks, like right, like it was just not as kind of, I guess, prevalent or
Yeah.
out there. And so what I decided was is I had this kind of hyper vigilance around my kids and protecting them. I mean, as you would, right? If you experience this like
Absolutely.
trauma when you were a kid. And so I decided that um I was not putting them in daycare. Like that was never a plan in my head. And so I figured I have to do something, right? Like I got to figure out what am I going to do. Now, the crazy thing is that I had a master's degree. And so I could have went back to work and I was educated and but I did not want that to be my path for them. And so I sold my engagement ring and my wedding band and I put myself through coaching school. That was the first time I went to coaching school. And so, lots of experiences later, fast forward, and I decided that mindset and manifestation, wealth consciousness, universal law, all these kind of things were what I was really good at. They were my soul's purpose. This was my life's purpose. Was to help people, which is what I do now around the world, to really heal their nervous system, change their subconscious programming and paradigms so they can create the life and the world that they want, a new up leveled reality. And so that's what I do for my clients.
Oh my goodness. I can't even. First of all, this is what I said before. I cannot believe still that you're in New Jersey. I am like dying over here, first of all.
That's
Second of
cool.
all, I just knew that we had stuff in common. Like I just knew. So, um, there's always, right, not only trauma and challenges and things that happen in childhood and younger years that are going to, kind of condition you to either be one way or another. Heather's
Mhm,
popping in. Hi, Heather. Thanks for saying hello to us. Um, but then even further, there's always like I feel like in adulthood, in it with like you said, you woke up, right? So
mhm,
there's always a pivotal, challenging time in adulthood, whether it's early adulthood, later on, or whatever it is. Everybody's on their own journey that is going to, it's clearly the universe shifting you
mhm,
hard potentially
mhm.
into a new gear. And it's
Yeah,
like, get on the bus, kid. Like,
yeah.
so, and for me, which I've talked a lot about already on this show, so I don't have to go too deep into it. But when I was 8 months pregnant with my first child, with my daughter, who's 5.5 now, I was laid off from my publishing career. So I had like a 10
Mm,
plus year publishing career, you know,
wow.
Simon and
Yeah.
Schuster. I was at Time, on the book division of Time at the end there. I don't care. I'm dropping names at this point. It's over 5 years later. Um, but, so totally unexpected. Totally unexpected. I mean, mostly, right? There were moments, of course, in retrospect where you're like, "Well, I should have saw that coming," kind of thing. But,
Yeah.
at the time, totally unexpected, total complete identity crisis. Who the
Mm,
fuck am I? If I'm
mhm,
not that career woman and now I'm just mom,
mhm.
really who the fuck am I? Because then that's not doing it for me, right?
Yep.
Because we're raised in a society that, we're raised in a patriarchal society that gives us a lot of that masculine energy. We're hyperactive, high performing women that are like, like, what do we do now? And same reaction too, as far as putting your kids in childcare. Like, for me, it was more like, well, I can't. For a long time, I was pretty stagnant actually because I felt too guilty to put my kids in childcare because I didn't have a full time career anymore. So
Mhm,
then there was me almost. holding myself back and blocking myself from progressing and starting my own business for a while there because I didn't feel really worthy of asking for the support that I needed, which was childcare. Simple,
mm,
right?
mm.
In retrospect, everything looks so simple, but, at the time, it was a
Yeah.
lot. So,
Mhm.
I really just, like, so resonate with that story, and I love that you mentioned the fact that it was, a lot of things happening along the way, like, this is not an overnight process, like, this waking up that we're talking about is, like,
Yeah.
a lot of it's, like, challenge after challenge,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know?
Roadblocks, obstacles. I would say my rock bottom, that I mean, I had so many things that could have been my rock bottom, and my rock bottom was really when I found myself sleeping on my massage table in my energy medicine practice 3 towns over. Right? Like I had nowhere to
Yeah,
live. It's just, it was like that was kind of the wake up call of no more, right? No, and exactly what you're saying, like you don't feel worthy enough, you don't feel deserving enough, you don't feel like I'm allowed to. We're looking for permission or validation or like who are we, right? And so what I know to be true is that our self image is a predictor of our results, right? So if we are having results in our lives that is not what we want or not what, right? If we need to really look at who are we being in the world, who are we, what is our self image? Because it is so tied to our success and what is like seemingly our failure or our lack of, right? Like that feeling of I'm just a this or I, right? Why can't I be that? Right. So it makes so much sense what you're saying.
yeah. Self-image, not only, how you view yourself and how you speak to yourself and how, kind or not you are to yourself, like, obviously, those are all going to come into effect as far as what you're attracting, but it's also, like, how connected really are you to your true self, I feel. There's a yet another boundary in some cases to get in almost all cases, I'm willing to bet, that you have to let go of your facade. You have to decide to live authentically, and I
Mhm.
think that that's, in many cases, like, step 1,
Mhm.
you know?
It's yeah, I, ran women's circles for a really long time, and, one of the things that I would say when they entered circle, was, "It's time to take off your social mask and put on your sacred mask," right? Like, step into that sacred, meaning, like, this was
Yeah,
a place where everything that we pretend to be or try to be, not consciously, like, I don't think that is a conscious thing that people leave the house and think, let me put on,
no,
this fake way. I think what
right,
happens though is that we put our armor on, right? Like we
absolutely.
unconsciously put our armor on and we walk out into the world ready to mm, take on whatever comes our way, right? Like that's where
Mhm.
the that past any kind of trauma or wound, right? Like, I always say our subconscious, and I teach this to my clients, and I talk about this a lot in my group, but our subconscious is like a black box on an airplane. It is taking in every experience, every conversation, everything, right? And so it has to go somewhere, right? There's one way to do it, which is process it out through the mind, like talk therapy. And there's another way to process it. Like we have to process it through the body in order for us to really be able to move differently in the world. Because our subconscious does not say yes or no, it takes on everything as truth, right? So when we're leaving the house and we're ready to, we need to go to the post office or we're going to go out to dinner or whatever we do, we really are like, think about getting ready. Think about all the things we do to get
Yeah,
ready, right? It is kind of like we're putting on, like, okay, the layers of armor
yeah,
ish, right? To step out into the world so we can feel safe, we can feel ready, we can feel prepared, right? There is a kind of a survival, thing underneath that. And one of the things that, I loved about Circle and when I was facilitating is that women really needed and embraced a place to just take a deep breath
mhm,
and let it all go, let it all out, share it, not hold it anymore. And so that is like we all as women need that. We need that connection. We need that heart to heart, authentic, safe space to share and to really start to integrate ourself into ourselves, right? Like, so we have versions of ourselves, that is what we're
Yeah.
talking about. But when we integrate all of those parts of ourselves to be whole, that is really the true meaning of goddess, right? Like I used to
Oh,
cringe and like eye roll at the word goddess, but really
yeah.
goddess is about being whole. It's about being complete and integrated.
Yeah, because that as women, I feel like that really is the energy and the power that we naturally are in. But
Yeah.
it's the conditioning, it's the taught ways, it's
Mm-hmm.
the fact that, and I always say this, and it's not in like a bitching and complaining type of way, it's a self-awareness type of situation where it's like, okay, what are we up against? Let's be self-aware. Because
Mm-hmm.
it's not our fault, and it's really not it's not productive to play the blame game in any situation, but what are we up against? The simplest example is like, women are really even from an aesthetic, we're really taught from such a young age that we need to be perfect, neat, pure, beautiful, well
Yep.
kept, and then but on the other end, men are practically rewarded for the messier they are. Right? So then you have what do you do? Life is messy. So
Mm,
automatically you are shape shifting constantly. And so it sucks and it is what it is type of thing. But that self-awareness, just getting to that point where you're like, okay, but it's the only, it's so true. The only way to be able to get to that space is to be offered a space to
mm,
take off the facade,
yeah.
to be held as you are. Um, a lot, like I just had I just went out for drinks the other night with my girlfriend and I'm thinking to myself and I'm on my soapbox talking about self-care and my spiritual work that I'm doing and everything. And I've known this friend since college and she's known me that long. So I'm thinking to myself, I wonder what she must be thinking about all of these concepts, just like pouring out of me now that never did before, but wanted to. Like,
Mhm,
always wanted to, but there was a discomfort around that way of that me being authentic in that way as a spiritual person and having, wearing the badge of like, yes, I'm into spiritual stuff, like I'm self-study, like that's who I am, that's how I am, right? Um, my Shvayaya badge, like I should just like literally get the tattoo and get it over with. But anyway, yeah, so it's like a perfect example of especially, me having known her that long. It's like how
mhm,
it takes time to become aware even that there is that disconnect. It's the only way to get to a point of that integration again where you're like, "Oh, okay." Like you don't have to throw away every part of you that it's not like a complete new you're not a completely new person, but it's that spiritual connection to self, you know?
mhm. You remind me of a story, when I I had gotten my excuse me. I had gotten my, yoga, certification back in 2000 and I wanna say 1, and, it was an immersion, so it was like 2 10-day immersions, and
Ooh,
I was immersed with these, like 75 other people in this ashram, and, we slept on futons on the floor, and it was a vegetarian diet, and, very intense, and I remember coming back, it shifting inside internally, right? But your world is still the same outside, right? Like, I
yeah,
left, and I
mm,
changed, and then I came back. And I realized very quickly, like, who I could share with and who, to be discerning and who not to share with.
right.
And, the other part to that is then I mentioned about the Reiki master. And again, that was all around the same time. It was what's really funny is that it wasn't until after I got my first coaching certification and I was with these people who I was like, oh my God, I found my people, right? Like I was finally connected to people who talked about things that I talked about and understood and had studied. And that was really when I started coming out of the spiritual closet. right? That's what I
Right.
called it, right? Like you come out of the
Mhm.
spiritual closet and you really are, starting to kind of get, develop the courage to, I know you mentioned boundaries earlier, but we start to get the courage to really start to think about what do we need, what feels right and good to us, what feels safe and secure to us, and then being able to step out into the world and demand it and require it and make it a standard for our lives and ourselves versus how we were doing it, right, which is keeping it all in and not really showing up as we grew, right? Because I think
Right.
as we grow and expand, we're changing and people don't really like change. Change is uncomfortable and it's scary
Exactly.
and it makes them kind of, I think, feel like, well, if this is you, who am I? Right? Because we kind of like there is this thing where you're who you are and then that's safe for me. I need you to
Mhm.
be who you are now in order for me to feel safe and good. But truly,
Mhm.
that is not how, it works when you are on a path of expansion and growth and stepping into your highest and best self, right? Because that requires you to really be in a completely different version of study and self-mastery. And like you were talking about going, you know, tapping into this inner innate wisdom that we all have. And, that's what I do in my somatic work is exploring this inner world and then really creating the inner world to match the outer world or for the outer world
Mm.
to connect, match the inner world, hence the manifestation of it all. Right. And
Mm.
so it's all about kind of unfurling that and allowing it to unfold.
Ah, the unfolding is a between the word integration and the word unfolding is just that it's everywhere for me right now, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's so true. It's a perfect, they're perfect phrases to explain the concept or to explain, what it feels like in a way to unfold, because 'cause I'm deep in it. Um, so I wanna ask you,
Sure.
so how did we get to manifestation? Like, how do we, connect the dots here from your journey and bringing you to that place? So, would you mind telling everybody a little bit about what manifestation is, obviously, for the people who, have heard the buzzword but aren't 100% sure? I mean, I have my own, definition, of course.
Mhm.
Um, and then also like why, like why, why did it work for you? Why does it work for someone else? Why manifestation?
Okay. So, manifestation to me, I actually wrote an article in Holistic Best Life magazine has a special edition, The Power of Manifestation, coming out. And I happen to be gracing the cover. And I wrote the inside article. The title of the article is exactly how I describe manifestation, which is invisible to done, right? And so it is really tapping into the invisible in order to co create with this energy of the invisible to make it done in our world. Okay. When you are in survival and stress, it is very difficult to do that. It is
Mm,
very hard to have a heightened, nervous system, not feeling safe, not feeling, you won't feel inspired, creative, expressive, you won't feel in your power, right? And it'll be hard to really create anything from that space. And so over the years, what I learned, because I spent many, 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 many years trying to do what I thought I should be doing in order to create, think the thought, think the thought, think the thought, think the thought. But if your
mm,
energy and your nervous system is heightened and you are feeling stressed and survival, it is very, very difficult to hold a consistent and focused thought on something that you want, right? The
mm.
idea is you want to focus always on what you want. A lot of us don't even know what that is, or we don't even really
Right.
have a clear picture of what that is. But when
Well, that
you are
goes back to the integration that we were talking about. That goes back to actually being connected with your true self and in alignment as opposed to wanting
right,
what you're supposed to want,
yeah,
kind of thing. Sorry,
yeah.
I cut you off. Continue.
No, 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 but it's true. It's like you gotta know, need to know who you are and what you choose, what you desire, right? You need to have that clarity, and you need to feel safe enough to be able to listen. I there was a time I'm on Clubhouse. Are you on Clubhouse?
Yeah, yeah, minimally, but yes.
Okay, that manifesting mama on Clubhouse. And so what I have in my bio is like, 4 times car repossessed, 3 times on food stamps, 1 time homeless. That is the truth. When you are trying to put
Mm,
food on the table and keep a roof over your head or keep the car in the driveway and you have no money coming in, you are in fucking survival and stress like
mhm,
nobody else, right? Especially when you are trying to just keep your kids safe. It's not even you anymore. It's now like you have these babies. And
yeah,
so I was trying to do all the things, thinking the right things in order to create and manifest. And it was really a struggle. It was really hard. I wasn't, maybe inching towards something here and there. But essentially, what I discovered was the whole idea of, calming and healing the nervous system, that rewiring, that reorganizing, which will create new neural pathways, right? Then we can feel safe enough to tap into the invisible. We develop our faith, we develop our belief, right? And, God works through faith, right? And so I will speak about this invisible energy as God and universe and divine and source and spirit, right? It's energy. But we tap into that energy, and that is the mystery of the divine, is the unknown. It's the mystery, like the mystery is the divine energy, right? But the
mhm,
deciding what we want and taking a stand for what we deserve is the masculine, right? And so it for everybody. I think that what needs to happen, because I think you mentioned it before, we are in this masculine mindset of overachieving, and we got to work, and we got to work harder, and if we just work harder we'll get more of what we want. But what we are not meant to work like men, right? We are
right,
women, right? And so we are meant to be receivers and become magnets of what we desire. And so it is what we be is what we will attract, right? And so we
right,
need to feel safe in order to be those things, to receive them, right? To magnetize them and attract them to us. And so, the way I teach mindset and manifestation, has a lot of levels and components to it that are typically not taught in, I think, the manifestation world. But I think that there is this, way that we can create in our life and our world, where it does start within, and it starts with clarity. It starts with making a decision, deciding what you want, and really, when you make a decision, knowing that you're going to be really uncomfortable, right?
yeah,
Like, it isn't about not being uncomfortable. It's about, but it's a different discomfort, because most people who want to create something new, who have a vision for themselves, they're already uncomfortable. They're already
yeah,
unfulfilled, unsatisfied, don't feel connected to their soul's purpose. They're overwhelmed, they're stressed, they're, overthinkers, they're right, they're in their heads. They're not feeling, that level of fulfillment that we want, that quality of life that is possible, right? And I think most of the people that I work with not only want to do it for themselves, but they want to do it for their children, right? They're
yeah,
taking a stand to do it different so they can pass that down to their children. And a part of my story is all around the generational healing of it all, right? That's kind of my big anchoring why, is that I feel chosen, right? I feel like it's my obligation. So why do I feel that way? Because none of this information would even be in my vortex if I wasn't meant to do this work, right? I just wouldn't
right,
be. I mean, how many people do you meet that don't even subscribe to this kind of stuff, right?
right.
So it's kind of like, it feels like it's my obligation. And so if anyone that's watching, I could guarantee it's probably your obligation too. You're the leader for your family, for your community, for your clients. So um, I hope I answered your question. I think I answered
Oh,
your
yeah. Oh, yes, and then some.
question.
That was perfect. I mean, it's a matter of yeah, it's as far as, the why of, like, manifestation for me, I remember it, the most recent connection that I made and I love the fact that, like, no matter what, whether you're working, talking to a mindset coach, talking to a business coach, there's a lot of, or just a life coach, whatever, there's a lot of similarities and connections between all of these different belief systems and modalities. So,
Mhm.
for your, talking, I know you've talked about the law of attraction and things like that and being comfortable, but also realigning with the fact of being comfortable with the unknown. Because the problem is, I think a lot of people get into this motivation funk, right? Of like this rut of not being ready and waiting and waiting and waiting to enact any kind of real change in their life, even though they know they're unfulfilled, even though
Mhm.
they know that something is missing.
Mhm.
But they're waiting for the confidence to do so. They're
Mhm.
waiting for the motivation and that feeling to come, right? And the preparedness to do so. And I
Mhm.
really love the concept of manifestation to kind of subtly, graciously sort of soothe that issue because it is like the confidence, you gain you feel like you need confidence or you'll have it as long as you know exactly what's coming, as long as you know and you have control over
Right.
every little thing. When in our lives do we really have it control over every single thing? I mean, it's
Mhm.
really not a realistic request in the first place, to be
Yeah.
honest, but it doesn't, again, no issue with it. It's just naturally what we can go back to the nervous system of like, you're in that state of not wanting to disrupt because if we do disrupt, everything else seems to fall apart. But it's like, you have to be comfortable with stepping out into the unknown and being like almost like co creating with the unknown, like
Mhm.
being okay with it, partnering with it. There's a concept, of course, again, the modalities and the belief systems being all connected, the concept of non-attachment in yoga. I'm always coming back to it because it's like, yeah, like it's non-attachment to the outcome, right? But you can go further. It is therefore having faith that things are going to line up how they're supposed to, whether that's going to be completely your way or not. It'll direct you to either whatever the next achievement or celebration is, or it'll direct you to the next challenge. And that is a part of your journey too. So, waiting for that confidence, I feel like the concept of manifestation really does a lot for the understanding that that shouldn't be a thing, that it really is about getting in touch with yourself, being in alignment, having a vision, and then maybe taking action to have that attracted to you as opposed to waiting for like the complete package of a system to, so that every it's not coming. It's
Yeah.
not coming. We're
I
never gonna know everything.
I think what you're saying is really important. So, this is the thing. You must take action, right? You must take inspired action. So that nudge that you have around what you want, that's your desire. Okay. Your
Mhm.
desire, you get take that desire and you have to now come and self-express. You have to become self-expressed. You have to show up in the world taking an action, making a decision, and taking an action to create that desire and make that into a reality. It doesn't just poof happen, like you said. It's not just coming right to you. And it will be uncomfortable because you are now growing and stepping into the unknown of your life, not the predictable everyday that, like you said, the control of it. The other thing is the non-attachment is key because it's not our business how this all transpires and unfolds, right? So what happens is we kind of we shoot out a rocket of desire, right? We now get, maybe there's, we start to create this image in our minds of what we want, right? What does it look like? What does it feel like, right? And we activate it by emotion. Your emotional body is really important in the manifestation process, which is why the healing piece is very important. And then what happens is you might have ideas or thoughts or opportunities start to appear because you've decided that you are going to follow this desire, right, to completion. And so it is when those things happen that you start to need to take inspired action. You get these nudges, you get these downloads. Let me turn right, let me turn left, let me get this book, let me connect with this person, right? You need to do those things. You need to follow through and take those actions. And it almost never happens the way you think it's going to happen. It that doesn't usually come to us in the way we think it's going to. And so really letting go of any attachment to how it needs to look is going to be really important. And that's where the trust comes in, right? That's where the
Right.
self trust comes in too, And I think you were saying before that, you know, the confidence, needing the confidence to believe. I think that what we need is we need to trust ourselves and be so connected to our intuition, right? Which is connected to this inner wisdom that we all have, that but we might not be attached to or connected to, right? Might be disconnected. That disconnection happens when we experience the trauma or the wound. But when we come back to ourselves, tap into this intuition, tap into this self trust, knowing who we are, then we can confidently know that we don't know how it's going to happen. We don't know, we are putting our faith and trust in the invisible, but we know what we're doing. We know we are committed, and we trust that this would not all be within us if it wasn't hand delivered to us. Do you know what I mean? If it wasn't meant
Yep.
for us. So,
Yeah.
I love that point. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. No, thank you. I mean, this is why I do this, because these conversations need to unfold in this way. And then, it's interesting because while I'm sitting here in so many of these conversations, I will sometimes think to myself, what can I say right now that um I don't know, that would like press a non-believer in manifestation into belief, right? Like, or, something along those lines. That's always in the back of my head. And, I have to remind myself that it just in line with exactly what we're talking about. It
Hmm.
is the person who is either just at the very least prepared to come into that place of self-trust, or is starting to listen for those nudges that will hear this conversation, and
Hmm.
then that is the inspired action that follows, and not necessarily that I need to, like, get in somebody's brain and start pulling some strings, good I as much as I want to, right?
Yeah.
It's so important to remember that, like, we're here to inspire, we're here to embody and to, like, set the example almost, and to vocalize these points as much as humanly possible, obviously another reason why I do this, but
Hmm.
there's also a level of, like, we need to be invited to go further than that, and it's, and there's gonna be people who hopefully will listen and say, "Oh my god, that's exactly the message that that I just attracted to myself," type of thing.
Yeah. What you needed to hear. Yeah.
Yeah. I wanna bring it back to self-care for a moment
Yeah.
to obviously connect the dots here. I mean,
Oh.
if it isn't clear, goal setting in general, which I think that a lot of people, that are very much in, that masculine energy, that going, doing, producing, go, go, go,
Mhm.
more mentality, which, happens naturally in the society we're living in, are
Mhm.
very goal oriented, therefore, and so they're into resolutions, they're into goal setting, and that's all well and good, because I actually do think that any form, especially if you're writing it down and journaling to some extent, like any form of either vocalizing or, getting it out of you in some way is going to be beneficial for your personal growth. Um, but sometimes can also give someone like a little bit of anxiety, and it doesn't sit well. So I always talk about the fact that it doesn't have to be such a forced approach to what you want. It's more about envisioning, you know, um, again, coming to that place of self-trust first. So this is exactly bringing it back to self-care. This is exactly why I do what I do, which of course I tend to forget to say what I do on these episodes. So I'm Samantha Long, and I'm a self-care mentor for women. And the reason that I focus on self-care among many things is because of this. Via self-care, you can get via different forms of self-care, can help you not only come to a place of self-trust, because I always say this, like, you start to take care of yourself, mind, body, spirit, in big ways or little ways, whether they're little baby micro practices because you're a mom like me and you've got 2 little kids running around crazy,
Mhm.
or maybe you've got the time for a good hour of yoga or meditation or whatever it is or anywhere in between. You start to prioritize yourself in personal, meaningful ways for you, and that is when your mind, body, and spirit, in my view, respond by being like, "Oh, you love you. You are the priority." And therefore, you start to trust yourself again. You start to realign and you start to remember all of those ways in which you were you before you started to shelf shit, right?
Mhm.
And sort of do that contorting that we talked about. I really fully believe that self-care is one of many ways for you to come back to that, and that's how we come back to self-trust, where we don't have to feel like we need to know everything or that we need to force things, that we can actually let things unfold, especially as women, and in the energetic way that we are, it's more aligned with that way of being. Um, and then you also talked a little bit about the nervous system, so obviously self-care comes into play with that too, right? Like, so I guess, if you want, if any of this resonates with you, or like if there's any forms of self-care that are in line with, developing that self-trust or taking care of the nervous system, ways to calm, ways to take back your control in a way.
Mm, yeah. So first of all, I guess I look at goals. So I don't believe that we need to trust ourselves in order to have a goal. So goals are meant to help us grow and expand. And so they're almost going to feel fantastical, right? A real true goal, it's not something that we know how to do. It's not something we've ever done before. A goal is really meant for us to grow and expand, right? And so in order for us to do that, it will feel like crazy surreal. Like, is that even
Yeah.
possible? Right?
Yeah.
And so I think that what we then do is, well, not that I think it, I know that what we do is we then start to take action towards the steps towards obtaining that, like creating that,
Mhm.
right? Because it starts as fantastical. Then, as we start moving towards it in mind, body, spirit, right? Really in mindset, in our bodies, in our emotional intelligence, the nervous system, the energy system, our actions, our behaviors, our beliefs, our attitude, all of it, right? Our thoughts. As we start to do that, we will start to make that become a theory like, wow, this can really happen. So this is what I do with my clients, right? My clients have goals that are like amazing, crazy big goals, right? And so we take those, and I always hold everyone that I work with as powerful, right? And so I believe that is 100%, you know, we can do it. We can create it. It's
Yeah.
possible. You are limitless. And so we create it into a theory, and then it starts to develop into reality. It starts to unfold in our reality. Right. And
Mm.
so I don't necessarily think I think the trust comes in that I'm going to trust that I'm just deciding that that is a goal. Right. I think the
Yeah.
trust comes in even before then. It's that I
Yeah.
am deciding I am going to take action and steps to create this. And so
Right.
there's that piece. The other piece to that is that, you're saying like self care. And so to me, self care comes in so many different forms and practices
Yeah.
that I think that depending on what you're creating, right, it could be that you need to get on the mat and have massage and do your nails and do all the things, right? Which is really a connection. I almost look at it as a way to connect to my inner self, my inner that in my to my inner world, as a thank you, as a gratitude, as it almost to me represents like a value I am placing on me, right? And
Mhm.
then for me, in with when I work with my clients, a lot comes around. The self-care looks very different, right? There is the feminine of the receiving of I got to make sure that I have space and time to do these things for myself. But it also comes in the form of boundaries and saying no and prioritizing your time and, really getting clear and taking a stand for what you believe in and really supporting, you know, that goal, right? It all comes back down to that. And it's, who am I being, right? Because I always say your children will be what they see. They're not going to do what you tell them to do, right? Like you can lecture them and nag them all you want, but they are going to absorb. It's almost like telepathic, right? They're going to
Yeah.
absorb what they see, what they can feel, what they know. And so I believe that self care, there is no one on the planet that should be without self care. I think that one of the things that I always talk about as far as calming the nervous system, right, is always start at the feet, right? I was just
Mm.
talking this morning saying that the feet is your connection to the earth, to your world. How you walk,
The foundation.
how your
Yeah.
feet are connected to the ground is tells you so much of how you are moving in your world, right? And
Mhm.
so if you just get on your feet, and barefoot is best, right? Outside is
Yeah.
even better, right? Get
Yeah.
all those earth ions, go by the water, feel the sand underneath you, but really just stand on your feet and just ground in, bring all of that energy down, right, into the earth. Really bring that earth grounding energy up into your feet, but really be able to, become aware of, am I pressing in? Do I have most contact in my heels? Am I kind of digging my heels in? Am I kind of
Yeah.
leaning forward on the balls of my feet or on my toes, ready to take off because it's not safe? Am I kind of taking up space by leaning on the outsides of my feet? Am I kind of curling in, on the insides of my feet? Like, am I contracting? Right. So it's not a judgment, right? It's you. The way we move in the world is all tells you so much about your past life experience and what you need to do to cope and care for yourself. But it's just this amazing way that you can, it's like a small thing, but it's a huge thing, right? Like just this amazing way that you can like ground in and really take some time to become aware of how you're moving. And then as you develop that, you can really just learn so much about yourself and then be conscious of that in your world, right? Like, do I need to be digging my heels in? Can I be more
Yeah.
flexible? Can I move forward? Like
Yeah.
where can I make little tweaks? And so awareness is the first step towards any kind of change, right? So
Uh, yes, 100%. This
yeah.
is exactly what I was just about to say. And I love that that you're drawing the connection to becoming aware of the body, right? Whether it's whether it is your foundation or, a tension in the body that may or may not be from, I picked up my kid too fast, like
Mm,
becoming aware and getting into your body is part of that integration, right? Is part of that. So not only does it have these beautiful, I don't want to say immediate, but apparent and deliberate benefits of being taking control of your nervous system, right? So basically, what happens is if you are being chased by a bear, then perhaps these kind of reactions from your nervous system are valid, right? But all of those reactions that are holding you back from doing things in your life, that fear, that anxiety, that's all living inside of you, and it is continuously coming up, whether it's manifesting physically, emotionally, spiritually. But it's really not, it's not productive unless, like I said, there's really some danger being had. So it really is about taking back control, and I love the connection to self-care in that way. You are, becoming aware of what is going on inside your body, and one of the most beautiful things that I think happens almost naturally when you do that is you start to be able to pinpoint more clearly what you need in that
mm,
moment. Because I come in contact with so many women who not only will look me dead in the eye and be like, "First of all, what the fuck is self-care? Like, what is that even?" Right? Um,
mm.
and will be very disconnected from what they need.
Mhm.
And because I'm always talking about like, okay, It's like this delicate balance between, like, just jump into something that feels good because anything is going to be it's about what it does for you, it's not necessarily about what it is. So if you're drawn to do something that's gonna support you physically, emotionally, spiritually, or mentally, then just give it a go. But at the same time, if you're willing to get inside your body, take pause, take notice of all of these little things that are going on, take 2 minutes to really get inside and get quiet and take that pause and take inventory.
Mhm,
That's how we figure out what we really, really need.
mhm,
In this constant go, go, go atmosphere that we embody, that we just I shouldn't even say embody, that we just identify with. Um, it makes it very hard to know what we need because we're not pausing, we're not becoming self-aware. I feel like everything I talk about lately comes right back to that point, like every time.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard, we can't really control our nervous system, right? Our nervous system is just a reaction, it's a response. And I think that that's where the work comes in around, really being able to get the support you need to kind of rewire, reorganize that so that way you don't have to be reacting, right? And so we go from, we get to choose, right? Because when we are in this fight, flight, freeze, survival space, we're not choosing. We didn't get to choose, right? And so now we get to choose, and then we get to change, right? And then we get to move differently. And so I think that all the things, the yoga, the Epsom salt baths, like all those things do help to bring the nervous system down to a place of I can rest, right? And so I think that, you know, it, it really is mandatory. It's not a luxury, right? It's like it has to be in or if we want to create the lives that we want to create because every time we grow and expand, there's a new level we're just ready to greet us. Right, and so we need to be able to know what we need. We really do. We need to be have that kind of self mastery and that self awareness of what do I need.
Completely. So
Mm,
important.
yeah,
Um, I love the fact too, this is the last thing I'm gonna say, that you brought up the boundaries and asking for support and becoming I mean, that's in line also with you might pause, take inventory, and realize what I need is
mhm,
friggin' alone time and space so
yeah,
that I can go deeper and actually ask these questions, especially I think for mothers, right?
yeah,
Um, so I talk about that all the time, the fact that if you're feeling, stifled in that way, and if you're feeling like there's just no clarity, it could very well mean that your piece of self-care that you need for you right now is to either set a boundary or ask for support so that you
yeah,
can cultivate the space that you need to take next steps and to decide, to have that choice back again. Because we just keep going, and it's unnecessary, really. We can have our control back of that.
yeah,
Um, I want to thank you for this amazing conversation.
yeah,
I'm going to bring it on home. I I mean, we talked a little bit about self-care already because I normally ask, like, some go-to, like, self-care, like, non-negotiables, or we talked a little bit about that already. Are there any little, like, little final thoughts, things that you really feel like need to hit home that we didn't touch on? Anything like that before I let you go? And then also tell us where we can find you online, and then I'll add all that information into our show notes too, so everybody can find you for more
yeah.
good stuff.
Thank you. Yeah, I would say that everyone needs a really good morning and evening routine. And I think that that is imperative for success. So most of the women that I work with and the men that I work with are kind of high achievers, entrepreneurs, businesswomen, mompreneurs, solopreneurs. And so one of the things that I teach always is a really great morning and evening routine. And so that would include all the things, right? The mindset and the self care and eating well and nourishing yourself and setting up your day and then kind of kind of unraveling that we gear up in the morning and then we're kind of settling in um I put mindset on both ends of that, right? In the morning and in the evening. Um, I would love, I mean, where can you find me? My gosh. So I have a group of women, Sacred Feminine Visionaries. I'd love to invite you all in there. I also have a brand new group that is Mindset Mastery. And so it's called Mindset Mastery for Success. So that's new. So there's not that many of us in there, but we're growing, and that's a co ed group.
Great.
And then I would love, I mean, I would love, love, love. I have a book coming out in the spring, late spring. It's called Sacred Shit: How to Embrace Your Messy Humanity and Tap into the Limitless Power of Your Soul. And I would love for you all to
Can't
keep an
wait.
eye for that. I'm so excited. Yeah. Um, and so, where else can you find me? I'm on Clubhouse at Manifesting Mama. I'm on Instagram at Danielle Marggraf. My website is sacredsolutionsnj.com. I feel like that covers it. I feel like you can find me on
Yeah, it's
Instagram.
great that it's good because it gives everybody options of where they
I
could
know,
go. It's,
whatever platform you choose. And I just want to say that I really do value relationship. And so if you're going to like join the group or follow me, please send me a direct message and say hi. Hi, I found you, Samantha Long, and I want to connect with you, and I want to know who you are. And so please do that. I want to make sure that you know to do that.
that's great.
Yeah.
I really appreciate even you saying that, the fact that I have done just that, I'm proof of that with Danielle. I have done just that where I've been like, "I'm liking your stuff." Like, I think at one point I probably just messaged her like, thank you." Like, because this is great, and then, that's how we connect, and I think there's something to be said about building your tribe in that way, so don't and I love the fact that, you're emphasizing relationship. Don't it's actually a great way to, like, push through, like, a little bit of, like, a barrier of, like, keeping our walls up and, like, being scared of that vulnerability of just simply reaching out, like when we were in kindergarten and we were like, "Will you be my best friend?" Like, you know, like, we have not that we need to say those words now, but we have a little bit of a wall up, and it's a good exercise, I think, to break that down a little bit by saying, "Hey, I really enjoyed. Thank you. I'm so happy to be connected with you." Done. That way there's that connection, that relationship is so important. I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Um,
Cool.
you are the best. Period. Done. End of story. I cannot wait to read your book. I'm going to let you go. She's literally in the process of writing this book. She needs to turn it in today. We got to let this girl go.
Thank you so
All
much.
right. Thank you again. I'm going to add all that information to the show notes. And then, like I said, whoever's watching, we are going to have this available on YouTube for replay. I'm going to upload the podcast through Anchor. It's going to be available on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. Please, please, please go on, subscribe to the Self Care is My Job YouTube channel, or follow the Self Care is My Job podcast, because there's so much more of this amazing juiciness and important conversations to be had that we need to share with the world. Thank you again, Danielle, for the seventh time. And I'm going to end our live. You are
Okay.
the best.